Kandis, the student choir from Trondheim, and I just do like this. Can everybody hear me? Yes. We are Kandis, a student choir here from Trondheim, and we enjoy very much to sing for all of you guys. And when we are studying at the university, we learn how we should engage in the society, and that we have to care about everything that happens around us. We have to take care of the climate. We have to do volunteer work, and we have to make others be as engaged as us. So to do that, we have made a lot of Facebook groups. We have made Save the Trees. We have made Quit Using Palm Oil. We have made Only Eat Meat 6 days a week. And we have made Only Fly 3 times a month. And so that we are saving the world. Yes, and we have got a lot of people in our group, so I think we have made quite a difference. So we have made a song about this, and it's called Jeg bryr meg in norsk, and yes, and in English it means we care.
Thank you very much, Candice. Dear colleagues, friends from all over Europe, including Australia, Canada, and the United States, welcome to the EUNIS Annual Congress 2019 at NTNU here in Trondheim. Our Congress is called Campus for the Future, and I hope we will have a lot of great sessions around that theme. My name is Freddy Barstad, and I'm the chair of this Congress. I hope you all will use this opportunity to acquire new knowledge and sharing ideas, as well as establishing new contacts and getting new friends during presentations, sponsor breaks, and of course at our social events. And now, please welcome our rector, Gunnar Bovim.
Thank you, Freddy. It's easy to feel privileged when we meet students like Candice, and I always feel that we should never complain from the universities that we don't have resources. We have the students, we have plenty of resources, and we have the future. So welcome to Trondheim, and I think I can say welcome on behalf of all the rectors in EUNIS. We are dependent that you work hard in EUNIS in these days and coming back home. Because what we learn as rectors and as humans and working at universities is that the digital future is here and it's coming even more. It gives us challenges, and that's why we have universities, to focus on challenges, but it also gives us, of course, even more opportunities. I myself feel quite excited about digitalization, and I know that you feel excited about it as well, otherwise you wouldn't have come here. I understand. But if we go back to the students, think what these students meet at the universities as different from what we met at the universities when we studied. They meet with digitalized universities, and we might think that we should, of course, digitalize even quicker, but we have done quite much. The teaching we give, the research we do, the innovations we make, and the dissemination we provide for the society has changed in these years. It is important for us to do more research, to do better research, to get access to more data, better data, more powerful analytical tools, and we do have it, and we will get it even more. If we think back 20 years, what the universities look like, and we look forward 20 years, I think the differences will be even bigger in the upcoming 20 years than the huge differences we have seen in the past 20 years. And that's exciting, and what's somewhat exciting about it for me as a rector is that I don't exactly know which direction. I know something about it, but I don't know really the direction. It's 29 years since WWW, World Wide Web, was started. It's 10 years ago since the iPad came. What will come up in the upcoming 20 years? And I know from my rector colleagues, whom I meet with quite frequently, that we tend to feel that we should have done more, we should have done it quicker. And we meet with our own professors, which thinks that maybe we don't need to change right now. I can do it one more year and never change a winning game, and we do quite well. And the next, all of a sudden, why didn't we change much quicker? Why aren't all these systems available long ago? So the leadership way of meeting this is wait, should have been done a long time ago. But I also think that we should look upon digitalization of the society and of the university as a very important democratic opportunity. It is a democratization possibility in digitalization. Think of open access, think of open data, think of the scientific information available more disseminated than ever before. Also to those who cannot afford the costly journals, expensive conferences, long travels, it is available where you are. Just 2 weeks ago I was in Nepal, one of the poorest countries in the world. They lag behind in many respects. They cannot afford what we look upon as obvious. But on the other hand, going out there, some digitalization tools have been even more important to them. The mobile phone and the possibilities on the mobile phone makes them a major leap forward, which they can catch us up. And when we really publish our data, disseminate our teaching, it is available also for them. This is important for their welfare, it's important for their building this nation, and it's important for the democratic process in this country as in many others. So don't forget that what you do these days also is about making the world more democratic, making data, making information, making knowledge more available throughout the world. So therefore, it is important to accelerate the processes. It is important to make them available. And we have to know that the future is more digitalized. But this is not going by itself. And digitalization is, of course, not the only answer to the future. We have to follow this up, because when we do some changes, we always get a very abundance of variables that makes the equation with what was before difficult. But there is a human factor. When we digitalize the universities, we have to supply this with good and steady leadership, hard work, and both a sense of urgency and a great deal of patience. If we don't have urgency combined with patience, we will not get this through. We have to do both. So these days, when you gather in Trondheim, I hope that you will learn from each other. I hope you will spend much time talking to people you have never met before, getting new ideas, getting new friends, getting new colleagues, getting new networks, because we are dependent on each other to move forward. You may do something at your universities which we cannot. We can do something by us which you cannot, and we should share what we benefit from it. And of course, it is a huge important that the universities move quicker than society in general, because we should lead the way for them. So our own systems should be better than the systems we meet around us. We should be proud to give our students better tools than they generally meet. And I have to admit, from our university, that we are not there. Some of our students meet with systems which are older, not that up to date, which they had at before they came here. And I'm not proud of that, but I'm proud of that we work with it. And we have to intensify this work. We run huge businesses, but we also lead the community around us. And we have to strive every day to have the position in the general population that we can trust the universities. We can trust that the universities lead us in the right direction, and we can trust that the universities will do this in a democratic way. Therefore, I think the theme that you've chosen for this year's conference, Campus for the Future, is I have plenty of rector colleagues who are very curious what you come home with. What is your take-home message from campuses of for the future? Some would think, in a digitalized world, do we need campuses? Can't we do it all by net? Can't we do the teaching from our homes? Yes, we can do some of that. And I think we will hear that what we have campuses for in the future will be different than what we had campuses for in the past. But I'm certain that we need them. I mean, you are here. You're not doing this as an internet conference. We want to meet. Humans want to meet. Our students want to have a boyfriend. They want to fall in love. They want to discuss with others. They want to bump into each other. That's human, and that's not going to change. This is hard biology. So we need campuses. Of course we need to meet. But we have to think it over. Do we need the campuses for the same purposes as we did before? Should we really go into the change that is happening in technology into what we think for campus planning? And I look forward to learn about that. I look forward to having all the colleagues from NTNU coming back from this conference. As I know, my rector colleagues are curious about their colleagues coming back from this conference with new ideas, new networks, new messages. So therefore, I won't keep you any longer, because you have a lot of work to do. You have a lot of ideas to get. You have a lot of change to make for us. At our university, we call this Knowledge for a Better World. Thank you for coming, and good luck with these days. Thank you.
Thank you, Gunnar, for this fantastic opening speech. And now we will have an introduction of EUNIS. I guess the most of you know that Congress. So let me present President of EUNIS, Raymond Vogel, and then we will have a...
Since 1993, EUNIS has been bringing together good practice and innovation in the use of information technology for higher education and research in Europe. Our knowledge and expertise covers all aspects of IT in higher education and research. Nobody understands higher education IT in Europe better than us. With members right across Europe and associates worldwide, the estimated operational IT spend among our members is 1.4 billion euros annually. We talk your language. We are an amazing organisation with different languages, countries and cultures. Our members are at the cutting edge of higher education and research. Our members include some of the most prestigious and innovative universities in Europe. We educate the world leaders of the future, and we offer them the best digital tools and learning experiences. Our special interest groups cover all aspects of IT in higher education. The set of active topics changes over time, and our members decide which topics to address and how. We are a not-for-profit organisation with low overheads to give our members the best value for money. Our activities offer opportunities to collaborate, exchange and learn from colleagues across Europe, and to engage with suppliers as part of our innovation community. Join us to be a part of it.
So, welcome ladies and gentlemen, welcome members and friends of EUNIS to this 25th EUNIS anniversary Congress here in the beautiful city of Trondheim, where the sun almost never sets down, at least in summer. We celebrated the 25 years anniversary of EUNIS last year in Paris, and this now is the actual 25th installment of the annual Congress. We have a huge audience here. We saw a number of 414 participants. Actually, I learned that in the meantime it has risen to 423 participants, so it's a huge success for EUNIS, one of the biggest congresses that we ever had. And we also have a very exciting program here for you, and we're looking forward, as the rector of NTNU, Rector Bobim said, we are looking ahead to a exciting exchange, inspiring discussions, getting to know each other, and also learning about the campus of the future. You were talking about the big asset that we have in our students. Actually, the film on EUNIS you saw here, it was produced from people, from voluntary work from EUNIS, and the actual artwork was done by a student from Brunel University, from our board colleague Pekka Kekipuro, who was very much involved in doing this movie. So you see, that is how EUNIS is working, very much voluntary work from our members who are contributing, and that is what we are proud for, and which makes us such a successful and diverse community. I want to thank, in the name of EUNIS, all those who were working so hard to make this a great experience and a great Congress, to the organizing team, especially to my board colleague Freddy and to Gabrielle, and my thanks also go to Rector Bobim for hosting us here at his university and making this all possible. So again, I'm looking forward to a successful and very enjoyable and inspiring Congress, and I'm looking forward to talk to many of you and learn what EUNIS can do for you, what we can do better, and also get feedback on your opinion on this Congress, on the video, and all these things. So enjoy, have a nice Congress, and looking forward to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. Thank you. And now I will be happy to introduce Gabrielle. That will give us some that is the chair of the program committee, and she will give us some go through to the program. But first of all, Gabrielle has birthday today, so I hope you all will join me singing a birthday song. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Gabrielle. Happy birthday to you.
I was not prepared for that one. Thank you so much. I don't ever have had so many people sing the birthday song, so I'm honored. As been said, my hat today is the executive president for the program committee. I've been so lucky to work with a group of creative, fantastic people, and we have tried to create an exciting program for this year's EUNIS Congress. Now the main theme, as I think you have all been acquainted with, Campus for the Future. So as you will see in the program, as a red thread, and it actually turned out yellow, there is a lot of sessions that highlight this theme. For instance, this afternoon you can go to R2 and be a part of an unconference, or you can go and have a playtime session at RIL and RAL. Now there's a funny name. All the interactive spaces get some funny names. And I also want to highlight for tomorrow, we have 4 guided tours, which will show a variety of some of the spaces that is already have one foot in the future that we want to show you. We have a saying in Norway, "Førstemann til mølla." It doesn't translate very easy, but the message is clear. Hurry up, there are limited seatings. You just use your conference app and then you can get your ticket to this tours. You will find all the information on the app. Now, in addition to the yellow thread, Campus for the Future, we have 23 parallel sessions where you find leadership and management, infrastructure and security, teaching and learning, etc., etc. And as an audience, you have an important task during these various sessions because we hope that you will use the app and then you can select maximum of 3 presentations that you think deserve to win the Best Paper Award. Now, this is an award that will be given to the best oral presentation, so we need your vote together with the scientific reasons. So, the Congress app. In addition, we have 6 keynote sessions, the first one starting in just a couple of seconds. Now, what's important to say is that after the keynote session this year, we don't allow for a lot of questions in plenary. As a social psychologist, I know that over 90% of you is very uncomfortable raising our hand and talk in a big place like this. So we have created a lounge, where after here, I will take the keynote and the people who want to participate in a more informal dialogue with the keynote speakers. More safe environment. So we hope you will participate there as well. That, I think, is my points here. Now, finally, I have been waiting for this moment for months. Now, I was so glad when the first keynote accepted. She's a professor from TU Delft. She worked at the Faculty of Architecture and Built Environment. Her specialization is planning, design, and management of university campus and buildings. And for us at NTNU, it's an honor to have her here because she has been an inspiration for our own campus project. Now today, she will elaborate on how universities can learn from each other to improve their campus management information and to support their strategic choices for the campus for the future. And I'm just so thrilled. I couldn't have asked for a better start. So, I want you to bang your hands together. I don't know how to say this. Make some academia noise and give a warm welcome to this year's Congress' first keynote, Alexandra den Heijer. Stage is yours.
Well, that certainly makes me a bit humble. So much pressure now. But thank you for the introduction. Well, I'm happy to be here from Delft, as I was introduced from the Faculty of Architecture and the Built Environment. And yes, I'm going to talk about buildings, but not just buildings. I'm a professor in public real estate, so that includes university buildings, but also hospital buildings, government buildings, all struggling with the same things. I'll explain that later. But I'm also head of the campus research team. We're increasingly bigger and looking at the campus from many different perspectives. So my next slide, who puts this campus central, will demonstrate our angles on the campus. So of course, from an architectural faculty, we look at location, at technical condition, at energy efficiency, huge urgencies these days on campuses with the climate urgencies that the society has. So that's one way of looking at the campus, and we do have research on those topics. But of course, being from a real estate background, I actually studied mathematics for a year before I studied architecture, so happy to be here in this faculty as well. But certainly the cost of the campus next to the square meters and the energy are one of the biggest worries of a lot of universities. The total cost of ownership, the value, which is limited, and certainly also, whatever energy costs. But certainly the user is central. So the right side of this equation is all about resources, limited resources, as the rector said. That, of course, is one of our worries, but we put the human resources central. So what their demands are, how they're developing, the student of the future, the academic of the future, what do they need? That's actually the core of our research. And of course, that's also limited or enabled by the political conditions. So that's kind of the fourth angle that we use to look at a campus. And you can already tell those are different languages that these professions speak. And it's really hard to make the right decision in the middle about any of these buildings, any of these NTNU buildings or any university building. So that already demonstrates the complexity of our profession. And I'll come back to that. So we do that with a huge group, also of international master students, PhD students, professors from all of these backgrounds. So like I said, different languages, but also a challenge to find common ground and in the end make the best decision for the campus of the future. And our goal is, of course, to do nice research and to think about innovations, but ultimately we want to support all those universities, thousands of universities in Europe alone, with their complex decision-making about these facilities to optimally provide the best workplace for students and academics. So that's our mission, actually. So I'll get to three different parts of this presentation. Of course, I will spend a lot of time on our vision of the campus of the future. Where are we going? And indeed, are we going back to tradition or are we becoming virtual? The second part will be about the challenges these universities have that I just briefly introduced already. And I'll end with some of the things that we've been doing, collecting big data about real use on campus. So where people are and how that is important also for management information to know what is used and what is not used on campus. I'll close with that. So first, some definitions about campus, because, well, usually people think a campus is an isolated place, but we actually define it as any collection of buildings. So it can also be 2 buildings in the inner city of a European city. So anything that's used for the university, and even more important, for university-related functions, because the university expands in terms of, its importance. And that comes to the second definition, because the functional definition is even more important. The campus used to be only academic space, so classrooms, lecture halls like this, libraries, offices to support that. But gradually, in the past 10 years even, the campus must be managed from all of these perspectives. So we increasingly, certainly with the number of international students, are focused on the residential part of the campus. Where do these students live when they come here? On the retail and leisure part, of course, we all like to be supported in the best way in retail and leisure. There's related businesses, there's startups on campus, there's incubators, industry, and there's infrastructure to connect it. So this already made campus planning much more complex. So now that you know that this is the setting, it's become city planning actually, campus planning, I'll go to the next part about the vision on the campus. So indeed, it was already introduced by the rector. There was a lot of literature at the beginning of the millennium that said bricks will be replaced by clicks. And that will go fast, so no more square meters, and maybe these campus managers can be ICT managers in the future. And there was even campus strategies in American books about 21st century universities that had the strategy clicks and mortar. And maybe the mortar is then the Wi-Fi, the ICT infrastructure. So they were thinking that this would go pretty fast. So that was our starting point. And then, of course, as a campus research team, we've been doing this for 20 years. We've been monitoring certainly what happened at Dutch universities. Since I'm from the Netherlands, that was, of course, the first thing to start with, the universities around us. And we could actually follow them from, well, not the moment that internet was used. That was 95, I think, well, at least at universities, we all got email and everything. So we could follow what happened on campus. Certainly at Dutch universities, we have a lot of data. I did my PhD thesis on this, so I wrote something about how to manage the university campus, and we also did a lot of case study research at European universities to back this up. So what happened at Dutch universities also happens in Europe. Then, ironically, because we were doing these studies, we were looking at patterns and everything, something really bad happened to our own building. And that's now 11 years ago, so this actually was my own workplace, and that went up in flames. So we actually could use our own faculty as a test case. What if you lose a building? Do you become more virtual, or do you go back a bit to tradition? So it was, of course, ironically, the best case that we could use as a research team to see what would happen to our own university, our own faculty, when all paper is burned and you can start from scratch again. And this was in 2008, and back then we did have laptops and cell phones. It was already a bit common, but certainly our university still used wired everything. So as a faculty, we were pioneers, and everybody got the cell phone, everybody got a bit more mobile. So I'll tell you something about what happens later. Because if you look at the patterns of what's been happening in the past years, but also how we look at the future, we actually identify 3 different models for the future and also for the recent past. And the first one actually is the traditional campus model, the university as we've always known it. I also refer to that as the solid model. I'll get back to that. I compare it to physical states of matter. There's the network model, more fluid, more liquid, and there's the virtual model in which, you know, consider these red dots, molecules, students, academics, the people on campus. So we used to be more in solid structures, so fixed structures. We became more fluid as a university and also on campus. And the virtual state of the university is like a gas. It can take any space that is available. So that's also kind of the global workplace. So if you look at what's the good side and the bad side of Model A, the traditional university, of course it was quite clear who the boss was. You had your own workplace. Every faculty has its own library. Even every faculty has its own restaurant. People had their own meeting rooms, or department had their own meeting rooms. Individual territory was embraced. But the question, of course, about this solid state of universities is, can we still afford it? And you see on the right side, you see some positive associations. We've done a lot of interviews at universities about what people really like about this model that's still existing. Many universities still claim that this is their main model. Of course, tradition and rituals, that's what people associate with universities. The robes of the professors, everything that has a brand to it. You can see that international students now come in and they're the first ones to buy the sweater with TU Delft or NTNU. That is something that didn't happen when we were just a national universities. We would just say, okay, it's a nice place. We're not that proud. But somehow the international inflow made us more proud of who we are, what our rank is, and that changed us. But that's, of course, the positive side of the traditional university. The downside of that, of course, is that this is a very expensive model. It has a very high footprint, because, you know, if footprint and climate urgencies are at the top of the even European agenda, how can we still sell to society that we have our own office and that it's vacant a lot, you know, at some percentage of the time? So that's, of course, a question that is raised in universities. It's not a reason to completely leave it, but it is indeed something to consider. And of course, the island culture, the silos, the inflexibility, the closed doors is negative associations that people have with this. Because the positive side is, I have my office, but the negative side is that people say, this is my place, it's not yours, stay away. And that still happens at a lot of campuses, and of course that needs to change a bit. So why this model is changing and why universities cannot afford to be 100% this is of course about the pressure on resources. So on financial resources, on energy resources, we have to do increasingly more with increasingly less resources, and that's something that a lot of universities encounter. So that's why we already moved to that more fluid, liquid model. And of course, that's a network model in which we have multiple bosses. We work in a lot of teams. We sometimes even have multiple employers. We encourage that in the past 10 years. Many universities of technology went into this because, of course, the technological innovations are between faculties, are not in traditional island cultures. So actually, many of the University of Technology have already moved to network university, not 100%, but with a lot of faculties. So the good side of this is that indeed being more fluid encounters more meetings on campus. Serendipity is encouraged, like you would find things that you would normally not find in your own faculty. People are more visible, it's more open, and the campus costs are lower, so it's more efficient as well. Well, the downside, of course, is that universities become bigger and bigger, and people feel more anonymous in these structures. So that is what people complain about. They need to feel home in a certain place, and if it becomes too large, it's a problem. So, of course, this is encouraged, the network university, with more temporary staff for research projects, more visitors. Students and staff travel more, there's more international students. Research has become more unpredictable. If you want to create a laboratory for the next 20 years, that doesn't work. You have funding for the next 2 years, so you need to share facilities. So many universities were forced into this model as well. So finally, it was already also introduced by the rector, the virtual university that has happened and that has brought a lot of good things. Certainly for countries and certain students that were so far from institutions that they did not have access to higher education. And of course, this model is very flexible. It is, you are free to, study whenever, whatever, and you can take care of your work-life balance a bit more if you're already a parent or if you're working far away from the university. It's of course paperless, so by definition, it should be the more sustainable model for the university. But you could also argue that if a place like this with a lot of people in one room is replaced by a lot of people following the live stream at their offices or at their workplaces at home, it might not be the most sustainable thing for society, but that's something to think about. And what we discovered, that online education, people do enroll, but they don't complete. So students miss the urgency to actually finish something. Of course, a lot of companies have like Coursera, they said, well, if we organize something for these students and if we bring them together, the completion rates go up. But then we're no longer talking about the virtual university, then we're going back a bit to traditional university. And that's, of course, what a lot of universities also encountered. It's great to have all this offered, but it also has a downside to it. So in 2006, when we were doing research, the trend was in this direction, but to our own surprise, when we did a survey just a few years ago, it's going back, and not completely back, but we're meeting kind of the borders of what's really possible or what's healthy. And maybe healthy is the key word here, because being in a virtual university is not always mentally healthy, we discovered. And that's something I will come back to. And the campus managers who said, oh no, clicks are not replaced, or bricks are not replaced by clicks, it's going to be bricks and clicks, so it's even more complex to facilitate that. And that's, of course, something that many of you also encountered in doing the jobs in ICT in a changing university. Things change, and usually it becomes not a replaced job, but an extra job in facilitating students. So what happened to our faculty after the fire, to close this part of the presentation? Actually, when we gave the students a decision about where we were going to relocate the campus, it was in a red brick building. When we lost everything, of course we managed the first few months to do something without paper, with a cell phone and a computer, but the community was so happy that we actually found a century-old building that we could turn into the 21st century university building. But it has a lot of characteristics of a very old campus. So we discovered already back then that students really value that traditional workplace, and that's what we've also seen in research. Because you can study anywhere, you can have access anywhere, but the lines in front of libraries are longer than ever. Really, at many universities, people claim space in the morning for their study mates. I'll save you a place in the library, and I'll make sure you can study on campus. And that's an interesting development, that health and safety issue, the mental health of people. It's interesting that some students even demand that the working hours go back to, 9 to 5-ish, to make sure you study during the day and you can relax during the night, because it's really hard to, manage that every day, to not kind of get lost in work is 24/7. And that also illustrates the love-hate relationship that we have with our smartphone. We all have this. You're super happy that you're so connected, but also you're so annoyed that it keeps you from the focus. So that, of course, led already in a lot of lecture halls and a lot of students or schools to boards banning smartphones from some of the meetings or some of the classes. And that's going to happen, or is already happening, at many universities as well. So we're also talking about laptops from meetings. It's not going to completely disappear again, but we're going to see when we need them and when it's better to leave them in the bags. So that's kind of an interesting development. And some of this that I mentioned here is already covered, because why do students come to campus? Of course, to avoid Netflix, to avoid binge watching and being distracted by roommates, because home is not the best workplace if you look at it, for a lot of reasons. And of course, they pay higher tuition fees these days. And certainly, I also mentioned it, love and friendship, the fact, and there should be data on that many people meet partners on campus. It's probably not a very popular thing to reveal, but I think the numbers will, if you would measure them, would illustrate how many people come to campus indeed to be with peer groups, to work on their network, but also to find love and friendship. So, and certainly a driver for people to come back to campus, and for that arrow going back to traditional. So that solid liquid gas can be revealed in many ways. So for study places is revealed. There's much more focus on quiet space these days. So we are all very interactive and we want to meet people, but on the other side, on the other extreme, we want to be in quiet space. So there's huge demand for quietness in society, but also on campus these days. So a lot of students don't come to libraries for the books. You can see that when you meet, when you walk around in a library and you see students study, they're there for the quietness. So that teaches you something to create more quietness on campus. And as I said, we're moving back a bit from the MOOCs, from the technology-supported lectures, to the lectures without distractions. And it can be just 5 to 10% of your curriculum that you say to students, please, just focus on this here, now, and not on anything that, any alert on your smartphone. This will come back, certainly for the mental health issues that I mentioned. Also in the office, you see this happening. You know, we had this individual territory, and this is what a lot of workplaces look like. We're gradually moving to more activity-related workplaces or workplaces at home. But this, the workplace, I could go on for hours about just the workplace, because it's really, really sensitive how we're going to handle that. Because 1/3 of the campus is office space. And office space is really traditional still these days. And we need to rethink that. Certainly, like I said, with the climate urgencies. So meetings will change as well in the solid liquid gas analogy in terms of maybe sometimes meet without the laptop. So maybe you recognize that, maybe you will talk about this again in some of the parallel sessions, how it's all happening, but the balance is changing. And of course, we're happy as campus managers and as campus researchers that the campus is valued again, that we appreciate it. So I'll go through the last 2 parts quicker. As I said in the beginning, it'll be more about the campus of the future and somewhat about the challenges. So if you consider this, there's so many universities in Europe, so like thousands of universities are thinking about the new composition between what should be traditional, what should be networked, and what should be virtual. And they're all testing new models, and they really want to learn from each other. And this is some of the partners we work with in Delft. And indeed, all these managers need management information, and that's also how we try to make information systems that compare best practices, but also the worst practices in many universities. What shouldn't you do? Maybe not go to the flexible offices with all the academics. Maybe it is of course a very sensitive matter. And we have done research on the European campus, the worries of these managers, and also you know, what we're proud of. Because let's be honest, I just mentioned that the buildings are old and sometimes vacant and they're energy inefficient. But the buildings are in the city centers. Look at this university, so important for the economy, the demographics, and the social cultural value of this city, of this country. That, of course, is also something that we should emphasize. But indeed, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly that we have to support. And this kind of illustrates sometimes that the value of the property is much lower than the cost. Many of the buildings are from the 1960s, 70s. There's a challenge here to, you know, find the right combination of traditional, network, and virtual in buildings like this. Heritage buildings, very old lecture halls, and very, you know, quite old buildings that are still iconic. So also our university campus gives the right composition. We have very new buildings, but we have so many old buildings that we struggle with. But on the other hand, people have become more flexible, so it's the people that are easier to change than the buildings these days. That's kind of something to remember. So we recently also made a book comparing universities of technology. So if you're interested in that, you know, we can talk about that in the speaker lounge. So I get to the very last part, because I have 5 minutes left, right? Or 2? Okay, started a bit later. The big data and the smart tools that we've been exploring. And this is actually quite interesting because, you know, we asked campus managers, what are your worries? Energy efficiency, you know, facilitating the student of the future. But actually they said, you know what our biggest worry is, or what we are frustrated about on campus, that the spaces are so expensive, but that people claim them and not use them. That, like, you know, at the pool, they put a towel there, and then you claim you don't only just not use it, but you keep other people from using it. And this happens a lot on campus. This is really something that we should collectively solve. And then indeed, there's a lot of ghost meetings planned, also in your agendas or in rooms that we have, meeting rooms that we have, meetings that are scheduled but that are not really taking place. And then of course you have these smart, screens that show if something is scheduled or not, but that is an indicator, but usually is also kind of fake news about if something is actually used. And that is a problem on campus, because this could be the sign, it's red, and it could still be empty. And that is was certainly one of the reasons to do a PhD research and to support this, because we said the schedule often provides fake news. That of course is a strong statement, but we can discuss that. What is the percentage of time that the space is not actually used when it's booked, when the schedule says occupied. So we started to explore at universities how many tools are available to monitor real-time use. So to use all kinds of sensors to measure how many people are actually here, instead of what's scheduled to happen here with how many people. So of course it has privacy issues. And but like with many systems, and this was kind of when we started this research, we tried different sensors to get the best resolution, as we would say, for actual use of space. And our PhD student looked at a lot of tools that were already present at Dutch campuses, but also in the second part of his research, also at international campuses. There are smartphone tools to see what's used, but again, they're usually based on the schedule and not on actual activity in a room. So we started to map them, to catalog them, all kinds of tools that are available, the sensors they use, and why universities use them, and for what purpose, and how old are they, and and are they in a success yet, or can we learn from them, or should we never implement them? So we make kind of a database of these smart tools to generate big data also about the use of facilities, because in the end, that's what proves that it's necessary if you actually use facilities. So I'll flip through these very quickly. We of course looked at the Microsoft tools that are available, some of the University of Cambridge tools for data, for space booking, many university tools, and we could tell that there's actually 6 purposes that universities use these tools for. It's to find places, so to navigate on campus, to give students something to find an empty workplace. To optimize teaching space, so to make sure that we use these rooms as effectively and efficiently as possible. To share classrooms for studying, and our book is available online, so I can give you the website later, and you can find all about it. So more details. Of course, the office space, as I said, is really some controversy finding a free office workplace. There's lots of tools for that. Optimizing the use of meeting rooms. And last but not least, aligning also building use. So not heating or cooling a building or a corridor if there's no activity. Or not even maybe cleaning it if no activity was measured that day. So that connects these smart tools again to sustainability goals. We can make a better match between what we actually need and what we actually provide. So that sums up all of these things, and I connect them in the last 2 slides. So we do think, looking at these models, solid, liquid, gas again, that actually the future is a bit bipolar. Binary, you could also say. It's 0 or 1. So we need to combine on campus the off the radar, the do not disturb, the solitude, the silence, the offline needs of people together with the interconnectivity, the online, the community, the buzz. And that is really also something that apps could support. So kind of that's a paradox. I think there's a lot of apps on your phone that can make sure you're not disturbed or not, easily interrupted. So that's kind of the irony, that we will use apps in the future to make sure apps will not distract us or other people will not distract us. So that's also an ICT challenge. So that kind of sums it up. We can indeed pay for these beautiful buildings. We can keep them in our portfolio if we make smarter use of these facilities. And that's of course also a message that we send to the thousands of universities in Europe that have these buildings, are trying to get rid of them, and we say, no, keep them, but just use ICT. So then you're very welcome to advise them about that. Use ICT to make a better match between what we need in the future and what we actually provide. No more vacancy, enjoying the quality of the European campus. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. Yeah, like I said, the book is available on our blog, and also this presentation is already downloadable if you go to this website.
Well, I'm thrilled. That was everything I hoped for. An amazing start. Thank you so much, Alexandra. We are a few minutes behind, so I'm actually suggesting that we will go for coffee and then we'll go straight to the Meet the Speaker lounge. But before we go anywhere, I have to provide you with this. Thank you so much for coming. Enjoy this. Those are dangerous. They're so good.
Dangerous.
And here. Thank you so much for a wonderful speech. Alexandra. Now everyone, you can just go grab a cup of coffee, and for those of you who have questions, go to the right. We have signed for the Meet the Speaker lounge. Me and Alexandra will be there. Thank you so much.